I'm the news editor for The Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my colleagues, content creator and writer for The Cradle, Karim Shami, and columnist and editor for The Cradle, Sharmin Narwani. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We are trying out a new time. We're going to stick with this schedule for a few weeks. As you know, this is still a developing project that we have here at The Cradle, and we want as many people to join. Before we start, to remind you to leave a like, to share, to subscribe, to check out our memberships where you can become a direct supporter of The Cradle. Hey, and maybe throughout the show, leave a super chat donation, and also check out our Patreon, where you can also become a supporter of The Cradle if that is easier for many of you. Guys, let's get started. Let's talk about the new Israeli plan for Rafah, which I'm sure everybody listening here, or at least most people here, already know. A concentration camp. The concentration camp being called a humanitarian city, a humanitarian transit area for those poor Palestinians who, are being killed by circumstance, if you listen to Western media. In reality, like I said, a concentration camp in the ruins of Rafah, which have already been flattened, essentially south of the Morag corridor and north of the Philadelphia corridor, right? The Philadelphia corridor is the Egyptian border. This is where the Israeli army is preparing, or at the very least planning, to cram as many as 600,000 Palestinians and who will not have the ability to live afterwards. This is per the Israeli armies and the Israeli defense minister's own orders to the Israeli army. So you trap 600,000 people in here, and then everyone caught outside is going to become a legitimate military target, in which, the Israeli defense minister says, under the law, we are able to exterminate them. So again, yet another a step forward towards the complete ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip, which has already been decimated. Its healthcare infrastructure, its water infrastructure, and electricity, you name it, has been destroyed. Now we're reaching the point in which you better start trapping these Palestinians into concentration camps and eliminating everyone else. In the north of Gaza, they are still destroying buildings left and right. They're using thermobaric weapons. We have seen footage of that over the last few hours. And at the same time, you have, the Hamas's Qassam brigades carrying out multiple ambushes on a daily basis, killing Israeli soldiers. As far as the ceasefire goes, there's really nothing to say there that we haven't already said. Netanyahu is again being accused of trying to sabotage it in order to protect his government coalition. His government coalition is threatening to bolt. This week, again, he's facing threats from the ultra-Orthodox over the yeshiva students' recruitment and all of this. But as far as the concentration camp, I want to hear your guys' take on what this means for this genocide, and also, are we going to see this actually happen, or do you think this is just going to stay as a proposal for now, at least?
Well, internal opposition has already surfaced to this with, even the Israeli army chief, Herzi Halevi, warning, they've had cabinet meetings about this, that the plan would drain vital military resources. The estimated costs for this new Auschwitz in Gaza is between 2.7 and $4 billion. It's money Israel can not afford, the way they've been, sort of
Yes.
hemorrhaging resources during this almost 2 years of war. Um, a source involved in the project has expressed in the Israeli media doubt that it would proceed, saying there's almost virtually no chance of this materializing, and very few in Israel believe the city will ever be built, which basically means, Israel will make all these promises, and then when it gets down to it, it'll just be a tent encampment, as we've seen,
Mhm.
and they're supposedly, the Israelis are prepared to cover most of the initial cost, while hoping Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE will later reimburse the project. They've got another thing coming if they think that the Saudis are going to be able to fund, this Auschwitz. But at the same time as the Israelis are escalating on their ethnic cleansing front, and genocide front, we have tomorrow and Wednesday a meeting held in Bogota in Colombia of
Mhm.
20 countries, including China, Spain, Ireland, Portugal, Indonesia, Turkey, South Africa. even Qatar. So there are three BRICS countries right there: Indonesia, South Africa, and China. And I'm wondering where the rest are.
I'm
But
sure Brazil might also be in it.
this was announced a few days ago. This sort of the 20 countries. So I'm sure there will be others. They're meeting to decide and declare concrete measures against Israel's violations of international law. There's obviously a lot of complaint that there's a climate of impunity enabled by Israel and its powerful allies within international institutions like the United Nations, the Security Council, certainly, and other international organizations, from UNICEF to all the various UN groups, prime examples, that is undermining international law so to such an extreme that there's almost going to be no coming back from this. If one country is allowed to sail through and commit the worst crimes against humanity and war crimes with no repercussions, what's that going to mean for the current global order? So this group, and it's based on something called the Hague Group that was formed, I think, early this year in January, by 8 states initially, with the stated goal of holding
global
Israel
South nations, non-aligned nations. It was like Bolivia,
Yeah,
Colombia, like usually
yeah.
the ones that have since the beginning of this genocide spoke out against. I wanted to mention something quickly about the coast of the concentration camp, and is according to Israeli media, they say that despite the expense, that their hope is that eventually Gulf states will like reimburse them for it, which is such an insane thing.
Yeah, they're crazy, So, anyways, the point is, the reason I mentioned the Hague Group and the meeting in Bogota this week is because we're talking about countries that no longer feel like they can go through international institutions. They're seeing Israel's crimes worsen and worsen. Like there's absolutely, like the Israelis boast about how they can kill 100 people a day and nobody notices anymore.
Indeed.
And so I'm curious about, and certainly the Cradle will cover this if anything interesting comes out of the communique. Because let's say these states decide that they individually as states, 20 plus states decide they will not trade anything with Israel anymore, which would be like viewed as helping a war economy. Then they can bring this communique to the General Assembly with 180 plus nations and try to get a resolution on it. Now, the resolution is not binding like Security Council resolutions are, but the problem is international law, which is in the Security Council's hands, is not being exercised. And so if 180 countries, let's say, sign on to an agreement that includes punitive measures against Israel, like we will not trade with Israel, period, that will have a massive, massive freezing effect across the globe in how countries are dealing with Israel. Because the few countries that will remain trading then come under scrutiny, and can be held liable in courts because, there's something called, I can't remember what it is when it's not actual law, but in practice, something happens a lot. It almost becomes like the basis.
You said a precedent? A precedent, right?
A precedent, exactly. And in which case, Western countries that support Israel will have like the legal noose tighten around their necks moving forward, as will Western multinationals, which may think twice.
Yeah, I mean, this is why Francesca Albanese got sanctioned for naming companies. Okay, Karim, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to throw some numbers. In the past 24 hours, Gaza Ministry of Health in Gaza said that in the past 24 hours, 139 people were killed in Gaza. And also the total number of people that were killed while they were seeking aid and food till now is 833 people. And among those, we have many people were injured. 5,432 people were injured by Israeli and American bullets while they were seeking aid. And according to Israeli media, not other media, not Hamas media or whatever, or even the UN, the Israeli soldiers said that these people were unarmed. So till now, Israel killed 833 people. They were getting aid for their families or for their ill family. And they injured 5,432. This is a very huge number. And in total, according to the ministry, till now, they were able to identify 58,000 people killed by the Israelis, and also 138,000 people were injured. And according to also to this report, there's a thousand under the rubble that were not identified. So the numbers that I said, they are for people that were identified,
All
and
the
there's still
numbers, exactly.
thousands.
Did you guys see that picture on I don't know, social media today? It's like a sea, like a sea of humanity. Palestinians basically now prepared to risk life and limb to just get a little bit of food. The entire process being controlled by U.S. Israeli, military people who really literally have a starvation campaign, to train them to come out there, lose 100 bodies, come back the next day, lose 100 bodies. I mean, it's the most vile thing I've ever seen. And the sea of Palestinians willing to risk everything for some food for their families.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
now, they're being prohibited from entering the sea. They're under threat of death. This is what Abichai Adrai
You can't
said
catch
yesterday.
fish.
And what's the temperature right now over there? What's the temperature right now in Beirut? I'm sure it's sweltering. Now imagine in Gaza where there's like no shade. As far as Karim's numbers, I wanna point something out, because sometimes numbers are, but they just become that. They just become figures. They just become numbers. They no longer become people. But just to highlight, more civilians have been killed in Gaza seeking aid than those that were killed on the Hamas attack of October 7 and the activation of the Hannibal Directive. So on October 7, you have fewer civilian deaths than you have now at the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites. And that should really, highlight exactly what is happening here. As far as the Colombia meeting, let's hope. I'm still very hesitant to say that anything really is going to come out of it, because unfortunately, for proclamations and statements, we have many. And we have so many of them from so many sides. But let's hope that action starts being taken, right? And bravo to Colombia, bravo to Petro, and to everyone else, to the Hague Group, for taking this stance, which also I feel like should have taken a bit sooner, but nevertheless, it's happening at least. What else is new with this situation with the Rafah concentration camp? It's truly disheartening. I don't, it breaks my heart to see these images.
It's interesting to note that actually in Western media, see the volume's going up there too. This is why I have hope for this group. And first of all, it's a small group, and they're all there because they think there should be repercussions, and they're all worried about international law being undermined. So Western media is actually using, of course, in quote marks, concentration camp regarding this latest Israeli effort in Rafah. So I think that's promising. I think there's so many people now. I mean, like the global view of Israel has tanked so dramatically over the last 2 years. And it just, we always think we're going to feel immune to the pictures we see, but the Israelis keep delivering worse and worse images and statements. They've become so emboldened that they openly discuss their genocide and the killing of all people. Nobody in Gaza is innocent. I mean, that was like when we caught that in the early days. It was
day one.
Independent media ran with it, but now it's an everyday kind of commentary. And Western media covering this can't ignore it any longer. They're also seeing repercussions against their media outlets for ignoring the situation.
You saw the MAGA summit. There was some right-wing summit in the U.S. this week in which Tucker Carlson spoke, right? And of course, Carlson focuses a lot on the Epstein files and all of that. But there was this comedian, I forget his name, like some right-wing figure over there, that he said like nobody who supports Israel can say that they are pro-life moving forward. And this is not like some lefty or Democrat, whatever. This is like someone from their own ranks.
And they got cheered.
He got booed. No, he got booed, and he was like,
he got
booed for saying that. And then he said like, hey, like you are okay with protecting the life of a fetus or like a baby before it's born, But then when he's born, what is like free for all? We don't care about dead babies anymore. And unfortunately, that's the reason. Today I saw this Channel 4 news report that said that a doctor, a British doctor, gave an interview saying we are seeing more and more teenage boys being shot in the genitals, like deliberately shot in the genitals. This is already, we had all of the reports about the children being, double tapped, once in the chest, once in the head. And so where does the depravity end? I don't think it has any end. And at the
I
same
actually
time,
saw something about Tucker speaking somewhere before I got on the show. I didn't pay much attention. I thought it was maybe the same thing. But I read that he got cheered. We never could have imagined this 2 years ago,
Yeah,
Uh,
he got cheered. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the
So,
moment he said Israel, he said everybody is afraid, but I will say it, and he said Israel is the foreign
yeah,
country
yeah,
controlling Epstein and blah blah blah, and he got cheered.
yeah,
yeah,
because my guy's pissed. My guy's pissed about the whole Epstein thing.
Yeah, but the
Uh,
point is that the people that endorsed Trump, Carlson is one of them. You have I forgot his name. He's like an Armenian comedian. He's huge also, and you have Joe Rogan and even others in his cabinet.
yeah,
They
yeah.
can be against him because
Even
he
the
promised.
FBI deputy director threatened to quit over
Yeah,
this
yeah,
whole situation.
because two of his biggest campaign uh, regarding foreign policy or internal policy also is like to show people what happened to JF Kennedy, Epstein list, and of course to stop the war in Gaza. And the three are linked to Israel,
Yeah,
and he couldn't do anything,
yeah.
or he can't do anything. I think
It-
his name is in Epstein Island. He don't want to show the people that there might be connection between the Mossad and the killing
all
of
of the
JFK.
pictures,
And
all of the
So,
pictures, all of the videos. My God.
and the
So go
yeah,
ahead, Shami.
Pew was it the Pew Research poll, like from last month or something, where
Yeah,
that showed
a few months ago.
71% of Americans critical of Israel. I mean, it's snowballing. It's Israel's situation is getting less tenable, but the those in with the reins of power, empires reigns, are still working fully 100% in support of Israel, while the rest of the world is gasping in horror. And this is what happened with South African apartheid. The West and large corporations continued to support South Africa's apartheid system until the 11th hour, when the crowds were too loud, the criticism entered mainstream media, and then it became a matter of reversing it. And we are seeing criticism of Netanyahu in mainstream media. We're seeing criticism of Netanyahu by Jews who are crying, saying the anti-Semitism he's unleashed is worse than anything we could imagine, that Jews are now committing genocide. So I think we're going to get there
yeah,
eventually.
and also Charmaine, don't forget about the new mayor of New York. I forgot
Yeah.
what's his name, Mamandi.
Wait, no, somebody named him here. Wait. Mandami.
Yeah,
Mandami.
yeah. So
Mandani.
so
Mandani.
so every time and since decades, the Americans and the New York mayors, they say we manage or we govern the second biggest Jewish city in the world, which is New York. And now we can see that New
What?
Yorkers,
Yeah.
yeah, the New Yorkers don't want like the mainstream media and the Como, the previous mayor. So they
Cuomo.
want a Jew Muslim mayor. You know what I mean? And even
It's
young
not that they want a
generations.
Muslim mayor. They like the fact that he gained like popularity after that first debate, in which with all the candidates, in which he said, "Yeah, no, I wouldn't go anywhere. I'm
Yeah,
staying in New York
I
City." And then they
understand.
came after him about his comments on,
But did you
do
see
you
that?
believe Israel should
Did
exist?
you see that over the weekend he hired some big DNC strategies? Some like a big name in the Democratic Party. So I'm just gonna call him a Muslim AOC until he proves me
Yeah,
otherwise.
I was referring to this because we know what happened in 2001, 9/11, and also the Islamophobia. It was
Yeah.
spread like crazy, especially in New York. That's why I talked and said that he's a Muslim. So what they built since 2001 is really crumbling.
Yeah, it's unsustainable. To remind everyone who is currently in the chat, I'm reading your comments. Thank you so much. You're also nice always. But to leave a like, if you're watching this, as soon as you arrive, just hit that like button and help us reach more eyeballs, work with us for the algorithm. So another thing that has happened over there.
Can you ring, like, can you do the clapping thing? We've gotten a whole bunch of donations. Are you guys noticing?
I haven't seen
Yeah,
any.
I
No,
was talking, Sharmeen. Yalla. Continue. We are live.
we are live. This is all live. There was someone being like, Ayala, start fighting Karim and Charmin. This
No,
is
I
no,
saw
that's
it.
early on. So Zorebro has given us 50 SEK. What is that? What is SEK?
SEK. Is that some European?
I want to say Korean
Gunara
won.
Marchis, $20. Fartun Ali, 1999. Sarah Khan, $10. Those are the ones I'm seeing right now. Sarah Khan says, how can I get someone at the cradle to read my report on Imran Khan? Well, send it to our email. Our email
By
is
the way,
available.
just on Imran Khan, I was reading this weekend that Trump has spoken to the head of the Pakistani army and said, I want Imran Khan out of jail. And he says, you know, he had a big, he had
Apparently
a
they're
lot of
buddies, no?
Pakistani supporters and donors. And he made a promise to them to get Imran Khan out of jail. And so, I mean, crickets from the Pakistani side, because the Pakistanis are cracking down much harder now on
And the PTI.
I mean, they even like managed to extradite 2 of Khan's political party's social media team that had arrived in the UAE, you know, the other hand of empire. They managed to extradite him back to Pakistan. Nobody's heard from them. So this is a really, really horrible thing. And then Marcio Santana has given us 10 R currencies.
What is
I don't know what R is. Tell us what your currency is, guys.
We'll take it all. We'll take it all,
No,
guys.
it's okay.
We'll take it all. Wait, what I was gonna say is because I want us to segue a bit into the many other topics that are happening right now. It's that the other big thing, you know, Donald Trump pissed off he pissed off MAGA with Epstein, pissed off MAGA with Israel, pissed off MAGA with now he's pissing off MAGA with Ukraine. You know, now he's offering to send offensive and defensive weapons to Ukraine, which he claims are going to be financed by the EU. They're going to be the ones paying for all of this, and you know, he's becoming kind of like Joe Biden 2.0 very quickly, right? Like he just needs a couple of dementia moments.
Yeah.
and the transformation will be complete. You know, who did you guys exactly vote for over there in the US? My God. So, you know, that's the latest. At the same time, and I don't know if you guys want to get into this topic, Azerbaijan has been in the news very much over the past several days. Most recently, and I mean earlier today, they signed a deal with Ukraine to store their natural gas. So now Azerbaijan is going to be storing Ukrainian gas. But more interestingly, well, they had a meeting with the president of Syria, the self-appointed president of Syria, former founder of Al-Qaeda in Syria, Ahmad al-Shara, in which the Azerbaijan also hosts Syria-Israel talks, right? As you said, the UAE has been playing the role of the empire proxy, and now Azerbaijan apparently is doing the same job because UAE hosts Syria-Israel talks, now Azerbaijan does. And even more interesting, I don't know if you have the link that I sent, Karim, from this report, but it says that a Middle East Eye report a couple of hours ago says that the U.S. is preparing to lease the Sangesur corridor for a staggering 100 years, and this is an attempt to ease tensions between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which have been having the UAE hosted, right, peace talks between the Azeris and the Armenians last week that at that moment seemed to be going somewhere. Now, apparently not so much because Armenia is really not on board with this whole idea. If you don't have the article, Karim, just pull up the picture of the corridor of the Sangesur so people can know what we're talking about. And, you know, what is Azerbaijan doing now? What is their role now? Who are they becoming? And who does this benefit?
Okay, I mean, this is such an important topic. It's kind of like, I think for most people, a new actor in the grand chessboard, but it's one that the Cradle has been watching since our inception 4 years ago, and we have a number of articles on Azerbaijan and Armenia, who are outside of West Asia, but nonetheless impact this region. And Azerbaijan, like the UAE, everyone's noticed in the last few years, the UAE has been playing an outsized role in global geopolitics, certainly regional ones. the UAE hosted talks and negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan last week, which was like, why are they doing this? But the UAE is on board. You know, it's really hard to talk about. We have two main blocks in the world, right? Russia, China, Iran, etc., the non-aligned nations, and then, you know, and they become powerhouses now. And then you have the dying empire bloc, okay, which includes Western countries and their regional proxies like Israel, the UAE, Turkey, sometimes yes, no, Azerbaijan as well, you know, Armenia, sometimes yes, no. So this is why it gets hard to explain this stuff. But did you put the Zangezur map on? Did I miss it, Karim?
No,
I think that's
I will put it. I'm putting
okay.
the
That's
articles.
really important. So what Esteban was referring to, this article today. So the Zangezur corridor is Armenian territory. It would traverse Armenian territory, which is like a finger that cuts off Azerbaijan between the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, which is kind of Azerbaijan as well. All right. Now, yeah, this area that Karim's little mouse is, that's the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. Now, you know, Azerbaijan is a majority Shia Muslim country, right? But like the Shah of Iran was Shia too. It basically means nothing. But when the Iranian Revolution happened, you'd think that you would have, you know, at least some part of the population supporting Khomeini then, or having him as their marja, and, you know, his vision of like fighting injustice, etc., his liberation theology, if you will. But then, in fact, Aliyev, right, the Azerbaijani government has an Ilham Aliyev, who is like basically the dictator of Azerbaijan. I mean, basically shuts down anything that espouses liberation ideas, independence, sovereignty, religious Shia ideas, you know, even if it's just like, I mean, sort of mosques talking about the struggles of Shia. Do you know what I mean? He's hardcore secular, but it's not why he opposes the mosque. It's because they maybe have some independent thinking. So what Aliyev has also cloaked Azerbaijan in a very Turkic light, okay, which absolutely pleases Erdogan in Turkey, who has a, you know, a Turkic expansionist ideology, the neo-Ottomanism, as people talk.
Yeah.
Now this corridor, again, put it on. Sorry, 1 second. The idea is Turkey doesn't have a contiguous line into Azerbaijan. Okay, there's Turkey on your left in white. There's Azerbaijan on your right in gray. Armenia cuts off, right? Armenia's border all the way to Iran cuts off Turkey from being able to traverse directly into Azerbaijan. So they want to create a corridor, okay, which is called Zangezur corridor, to be able to do that. Now, Iran is absolutely against this. Obviously, it would cut off their border with Armenia, which has historically been a very friendly nation. The two have, you know, experienced good relations. But worse yet is the threat from Aliyev, the dictator of Baku, who has brought Mossad operatives right to Iran's border. They have forward operating positions there in terms of eavesdropping, in terms of, you know, surveillance, in terms of this last 12-day war. We saw, we surmised that the Israelis had used Azerbaijani airspace because in the Caspian, we saw at least 3 or 4, what are they called? You know, the jet fuel,
the refueling planes,
refueling tanks that have been dropped into the Caspian region. Okay, so Israel had obviously come from Israeli airplanes had obviously come from that direction as well. And we know, because the Iranians have claimed, that there were clearly some of Israel's more top drone, not the little ones, but the major drone,
The expensive ones, yeah.
Yeah, the expensive ones that came over the border from Azerbaijan. So Iran does not want Turkey, which obviously sells oil to Israel as well and provides it, while it slams it publicly, while Erdogan makes great, show of slamming Israel publicly, has been providing steel to Israel's army, has been providing oil for Israel's military, all the basic nuts and bolts that it needs. And the Cradle has written extensively about this. So Turkey wants to create this link through the Zangezur corridor to Azerbaijan, which means basically it opens, and the Iranians have called this, it's actually quite interesting. The Iranians have called this, I think it's Turkey's, it's called, Iran calls it NATO's Turan corridor, which is a project they believe ostensibly supported by Israel and NATO, which aims to foment ethnic unrest in the areas of Iran inhabited by ethnic Turks. Okay, so Azerbaijan was part of Iran for like centuries, and it was only like hundreds of years later that Turkic influences and Turkic language penetrated the area, and then in the 19th century, the Russians took it over from Iran. All right. I mean, Azerbaijan it was an Iranic nation. So there's a lot of these things. And basically all the projects in Azerbaijan are working against Iran. Iran is a hard no on the Zangezur. Turkey and Azerbaijan want it. Now, this is one of the arenas of the grand chessboard. If you're missing this, you're missing a lot of game playing, okay? Because even India cares about this. Why? All right.
I just want to highlight something very quickly. A commenter, Arsenal. It's about BRI versus IMEC. You hit it right in the head, Arsenal. And I'm sure Sharmeen was going to head in that direction soon as well.
Yeah. So the India has typically sided with Azerbaijan, like in the wars over Nagorno-Karabakh, and the Indians have supplied Armenia with weapons. It is critical because there's a weird sound going on. What is that sound?
I don't know what that is either.
Okay. So Pakistan is usually aligned with Turkey on many foreign policy initiatives and a general outlook. It's a lot of reasons why that happens. We actually once did an article on it, so check that out. But India is with Armenia on this, and Pakistan with Turkey, all right, and Azerbaijan. India shares the Shah Bahar port with Iran, which is a vital trade artery for New Delhi. And don't forget, India is very worried about China's BRI because those two are major power rivals in Asia, right, in the Asian continent. So India values the trade routes that Iran has enabled it to have, not just the port in Chabahar, but also Iran, India, and Russia are the three principals in the International North-South Transportation Corridor, or INSTIC. Okay. Turkey is very, very aggressive on routes. Okay. It's one of the regional actors most aggressively advancing alternative connectivity projects in both Central Asia and the Caucasus. Okay. So, most of these, by the way, are dependent on Azerbaijan and seek to undercut Russia, which of course the Russians don't like either. Over the Zangezur corridor, which is my point, you're going to have potentially on one side, Turkey, Azerbaijan, NATO, Israel, and maybe Pakistan. And on the other side, Iran, India, Russia, and potentially China. Because if this becomes a playing field on the grand chessboard, which I believe it will, the poles are going to, come together over this. Karim, is it you breathing?
We can
I
hear a
stopped
very
now.
strange reading. Someone said,
I,
Darth Vader, that you? I was wondering the same
Yeah, I'm
again.
just
no,
literally, it's so loud.
there's like an electronic something from outside the cradle.
Uh,
Yeah,
It's
yeah, whatever. It's you
somebody's
breathing. You're heavy breathing.
plus my breathing maybe.
leave your likes, please leave your likes. As you remember, Karim has the power to change the universe with his knees, so that's why his breathing is so hard. No, I'm kidding.
So
Go ahead, Sharmin.
can I just so
Yeah,
I just
Sharmin, I
want to
put
say, like, one of the main corridors that Turkey's advanced, it's like the Baku Tbilisi Ceyhan crude oil corridor, and then there's, which is BTC, and then there's a BTE natural gas pipeline. I mean, Turkey is, it's where China wants to build its BRI through Europe, but Turkey's got its own ideas, okay? And they are NATO aligned because NATO wants Zangezur, NATO wants the Turkish corridors for the moment to trump the Chinese ones, to trump the Russian, Iranian ones. So as we've said from the inception of the cradle, it's the reason we've covered routes and railways and pipelines so often here, because it's where we believed all the great power struggles would coalesce. Israel, for instance, receives 40% of its oil through the BTC pipeline that runs through Turkey, and that has never been turned off. So Azerbaijan is supplying Israel, it's supplying Ukraine, and this is where things get interesting. I'm totally running on, but I promise I have 2 more points and I will stop. So the Russians, where do they play a role in this? Because they got kind of quiet over Armenia, Azerbaijan, the South Caucasus, Zangezur once the Ukraine war started, okay? But here's something super interesting. Putin did an interview, I'm trying to find out when that was. He did an interview with a well-known Russian journalist, Pavlo Zarubin, on Russian state television, and he confessed a mistake. He confessed that he had had deep misunderstanding about the West's attitude towards Russia. He always perceived it as being an ideological difference, okay? Whether it was they didn't like the Russian Christianity or Russia's, its empires, etc. But Putin says in this interview, over time, it has become clear to him that the background between Western animosity toward Russia is not ideology, but something else. And he calls it interest, which, I mean, to many of us, like a friend of mine and a cradle writer, Fadi Lama, just said to me this morning, he said, better late than never. But Putin's come around to realize it's not like the wars of World War I and World War II exactly, all right, and what happened before that between the Russian empires and the West. It comes down to geography. Putin says it comes down, and he says this, when the Soviet Union went away, all right, so he says, quote, but even when the ideology disappeared, when the Soviet Union ceased to exist, the same almost routine deviation from Russia's interests continued by the West. And it was not because of ideas, but because of the pursuit of advantages, geopolitical, economic, strategic. It's exactly what we've been talking about at the cradle. It's roots, it's connectivity, it's geography, absolutely. And now that Putin, I mean, he's just announced this, I've made a grave error in judgment. This is really all about geopolitics and geoeconomics, right? We may now see Putin's view shift altogether. We have seen in the last few weeks his views shift on the what is it called? The military, the special military operation, which has become like every week the Russians are bombarding military targets and infrastructure targets in Ukraine, not civilian ones. But it was, what was like a small tap here and there is now huge. And interestingly, because I don't know if our viewers know, the Azerbaijanis basically arrested a bunch of Sputnik journalists in Baku in the
A
last
few
2
days
weeks.
ago, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
something donation from non-Biryani. I do not know the denomination of this coin, but thank you so much. Love from India. Keep up the good work. I imagine it's Indian rupees, right?
Thank you, thank you. And that was, they made a great show of humiliating these journalists. And the Russians are now acting a little bit more in Azerbaijan. I was just watching, I haven't verified it myself, but I was just watching an expert on this area talk about how in just this last week, the Russians took out 2 oil refineries in Ukraine. That's the one. They took out 2 oil refineries, which are believed to be owned by Aliyev, Ilham Aliyev, okay, the president of Azerbaijan, that were left alone for the last few years, right? But just in the last week, they were taken out. That's a message to Azerbaijan.
From the Russians.
And that's an indication that Russia, now understanding Putin, now understanding this is not about like Russia and the history between West and Russia. This is just about geopolitics, geoeconomics, interest, money, power, wealth, and clout. And I think the Russians are going to speed up some things in Ukraine. It is still very much their focus, but they're not going to leave these other territories where their enemies have made great strides and have become so emboldened, as Azerbaijan was to let Israel use its airspace to attack Iran. Let's be honest. There's no way Azerbaijan would have done that before. By the way, Azerbaijan's a population 10 million people. Iran is 90 million people. And Azerbaijan,
92.
like Israel, cannot fight shit without the help of Turkey, et cetera, et cetera. Turkey is the deciding factor in why they won in the last Nagorno-Karabakh war. So what I'm saying is Iran itself could handle Azerbaijan, but it's not how Iran plays. That's the end of my rant.
Karim, I know beforehand, Karim was taking a bit of a little nap right now, the last couple of minutes. No, but I know beforehand you did a deep dive into Azerbaijan. Before Karim gets into it, please remember to leave your like, to share this video. Thank you everyone who is here. Karim, tell us a bit about the Azerbaijan and why you found that.
If we want to talk about Azerbaijan, we have to talk about Ilham Aliyev, who's the sole leader of Azerbaijan. He became president after his father died in 2003, and the day his father died, he became the ultimate leader of Azerbaijan. And his father also was the president since 1993, after Azerbaijan took the independence from the USSR, Soviet Union. And also we have to know about his wife. She's the vice president, and she controls the banks and the media in Azerbaijan. And he has a young child. He was born in 1997, and he lives a luxurious life in Dubai. So what's also interesting in Azerbaijan, I know Sharmin said they are 10 million, and Iran is 92 million, but also we have to know that there is 17 million Azari live in Iran, and they might be dangerous to the Iranians. I'm not saying they don't like Iran, but of course it's easier for the Mossad and Western countries.
To interrupt 1 second there, just to let our viewers know that the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, has Azeri roots, as does the current president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. There's no doubt that most Azeris in Iran, this big ethnic minority, are Iranian. Go ahead.
Yeah, they are Iranian, but I think it's easier for the Mossad and other intelligence people to penetrate, especially Azari Iranians and Kurdish Iranians.
And Baluchis and
but I think it's easier for them to penetrate from the West, because there is Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Iraq, and there's American presence there. While on the other hand, it's not as easy as it is. So I was talking about Aliyev. He's really the sole leader. I even went while I was researching. I even went to ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT, "What about Aliyev?" ChatGPT said Aliyev is a textbook for dictatorships. So the guy did it all, and of course he controls everything. And other things that I wanted to say. Azerbaijan rose to power because, unfortunately, Syria after the Syria fell, and the balance. And of course, we talk about geopolitics. The balance of West Asia has somehow being disrupted because, for instance, Azerbaijan was considered like as an enemy to Syria. Now they want to take also gas from it. It's not only about like they hold Israeli Syrian talks. And by the way, the people that broke the news and said that Syrians and Israelis sat together in Azerbaijan and had talks is an Syrian source. It's not an Israeli source even. Yeah, they are not ashamed of that. It will happen eventually, and because of course after following the assassination of Sayyid Hassan and the disappearance of Bashar al-Assad, now we're seeing Syria moving towards Azerbaijan to get its gas, not its oil. This is very important because people should know that Syria relies on both gas and oil. So they still have the problem of oil. We'll see what will happen with the SDF because currently the SDF, the Kurdish militia in east of Syria, they are the ones who control the oil. Now they solved the problem of gas. Usually both were during the leadership of Bashar al-Assad, both came from Iran. And before the war, Syria used to import some from Iran, and the rest were from the east. So this also gives leverage also to Turkey because Turkey is trying to be the hub of gas in the whole region, not only even in West Asia, because currently they have a deal. Yeah, they have a deal with Cyprus, they have a deal with Israel, and now with Azerbaijan and Syria, and they have a hub near Ankara where they want to re-export gas to Europe and to other places. So, of course, as Sharmeen said, Azerbaijan alone can't do this. It needs the help from Turkey. Yes, and also I want to answer to also to talk because it's very important. I think it's equally important that UAE 2 days ago they signed a deal with Syria and they pledged to pay DP World, which is a Dubai-based company, and it was the dream of Sheikh Zayed since 1997. He wants to control the ports of West Asia, and unfortunately, currently he's succeeding. He's controlling 11 ports in Yemen. I know most of the war that happened in Yemen was initiated by Saudi Arabia, but the fruit was like taken by UAE. UAE controls 11 ports, and of course in Djibouti they tried, but the Djiboutian government, they like kicked out the UAE, and now they have court fights between one another, and also in Somal, and also in Sudan, and in Libya, they tried to control everything, especially everything that concerning ports, and now they want to control Syria's coast, and they signed it, and this is very dangerous. Going back to near future, this will tell us that why it's that dangerous, because wherever DP World put their foot, there's conflicts and there people dying and there's wars.
This is for Tartus port, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. Tartus was one of the sites of the Alawite massacres.
Yes, 100%. There's a map that we put previously. There's a map that we previously made in the cradle. This was like a historic map what the Americans want from Syria. They want to divide Syria. We've been hearing this since 15 years. And if we check, there's something here called Alawite State. This area, we see it expands and it goes to the coast. Why I said it's very dangerous for UAE to come there, because when they went to Yemen, there was war. In Sudan, there's war. And in Libya also, there's war. And in Somal. And this company is a company to divide. It's not like only to invest. So why it's dangerous? Because they usually praise the Sunnis, this company, and now they want to control an area which is most of it Alawites, and we know
Yeah.
there also there was the massacre that
Yeah,
Esteban
they've
mentioned.
been ethnically cleansed. They're being targeted,
100%.
persecuted. Let's talk a bit about Syria, actually, since we pivoted here, because many things have happened over the past several days. Chief among them, or one of the ones that made a lot of noise, was Thomas Barracks, a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, close friend of Donald Trump as well. Now the envoy, special envoy to Syria. He said that if Lebanon doesn't move quickly, they are on their that they should fear being taken over by Syria, right? I don't have his exact quote right now, but he said, if Lebanon doesn't move quickly, we're gonna see like Lebanon get taken over by Syria. That left many people up in arms, in particular in Lebanon. He later retracted that statement, although his retraction was very weak. What else has been happening in Syria? The Druze have been fighting government-aligned forces in the tribal areas, as you can see here in the map, where the border, where the Druze are. At the same time, with the Kurds, with the SDF, as you said, Charmin, who they control, right, the oil, they are not yet in full agreement with the Al Qaeda government in Syria, now sanctions-free government in Syria, to join the army. They said, we haven't actually reached the agreement yet. We're not happy with it. And at the same time, well, you have everything that's happening internally in Syria, which is a new sheikhdom, the caliphate in its full form, threatening everyone. What do you make about Thomas Barrack's threats to Lebanon, and also the clashes? It's Syria. Is the Al Qaeda government in Syria in control, or is this just a mirage?
Me?
Whoever wants to answer my
Okay.
question.
So regarding these commands, first he made the first command regarding this was 2 months ago, and I remember here I sat with my colleagues and asked them about it when he said that Sykes-Picot now is out of the picture, and we were talking about why he said that, and it's usually very weird for American politicians or envoys to talk about Sykes-Picot. Usually we know about it, you know what I mean?
But it's
Usually
not
they
mentioned a
talk
lot,
about
yeah.
it. So now I understood it. As the United States sees Lebanon, they see it as part of Syria, and of course the Lebanese government, it's the same. Yani, let's go back to the
Let
map.
me
So
read the quote very quickly,
okay.
what Thomas Barak said. He says, you have Israel on one side, you have Iran on the other, and now you have Syria manifesting itself so quickly that if Lebanon doesn't move in disarming Hezbollah, it's going to be Bilad al-Sham again, using the historical name for Greater Syria, which included Lebanon and Palestine. That's what Thomas Barak told the National a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so
Thank you to
currently,
Daniel Modus Carter for a $4.99 donation. Thank you so much. Sorry, Karim, go ahead.
no problem. So currently what we see here, this is Syria, and Greater Syria usually expands to parts of Iraq, Jordan, and of course occupied Palestine and Lebanon. So that's what they mean about it. But what was revealed in the news and from people that are very close to to the current Syrian government, and they want to TV from within Syria, the main point was the circle that I put here, which is Tripoli and its surroundings. It's one of the biggest, it is the biggest Sunni city in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And for decades, me as a Lebanese, and every time I meet with people from Tripoli, they always say they don't feel that they are Lebanese, that the government does nothing to them. And
They are
when you
abandoned.
go now,
I will give them that. That city has been abandoned, man.
yeah,
By the
it is
government,
abandoned
yeah.
since decades. It's not something new.
Yeah.
And also, when you go to Tripoli nowadays, you will see Sharia photo everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, they have, of course. I will put one out now. So you have pictures there. So and also we have to know that usually whatever happens in Tripoli, usually Turkey jumps in and they like donate money or they make like small hospitals or whatever or schools. So the ground is ready for this. I'm not saying it will happen within like a few months or few years, but first we have the frustration of the people. It is there. They are Sunnis and they love Sharia. His pictures is everywhere, and they already have connections with Turkey. So this might happen only in the north. And as I said it before, let's be frank. Now the real ruler of Lebanon, for me, according to me, I don't think Sharmin will agree, is Jaja. He's a Christian
Samir Jaja.
supremacist. Yes.
Wow.
He doesn't care about the north. He doesn't care about the south. For them, south will be eaten by Israel. The north will be eaten by Syria, and keep the middle of Lebanon, which is historically named Mount Lebanon, for us.
The
And what
Christian
happens in
Maronites.
Bekaa, they don't care. The Bekaa is this region which borders Syria here. And till now, if we want to count, there's tons and tons of clashes between Syria and Lebanon on the border, between, for instance, clans or between the army. Until now, I think our president and prime minister, they live in Honolulu. They have no idea about this. Just today, the president denied any of these talks, which are like valid.
What do you think, Sharmin? What do you think about the Syrian threat? What do you think about Thomas Barak and his?
So, the moment, I mean, nothing has to actually happen that he sees, but the moment the baddies, okay, say, make an announcement, we're going to do something. They announce their new construct. As I talk at the Cradle often, like, these are just constructs. They're like ideas, marketing ideas to put in our minds to make us feel like, oh, woe is us, or like, this is our destiny, this is our future, this is where we're going. Karim buys it immediately, okay? In my view, because he gets horrified, and then that
Live your life,
resonates
people. Live your
emotionally.
life.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just how we react. Like, I was like that when I was younger, okay? But now I realize that that there's because we see it. I keep people like Karim, thinking Israel's winning, Hezbollah is losing, resistance is losing. Israel is extremely kinetic. If it stops for a second, it's lost, okay? The US is the same. These are the same beasts. The French, the British, every day their press, their announcements by their trade ministers, by their, ministers of interior, by their secretary of defense, by it's constant, and they just hope something sticks, okay? This is what I want to say. They have an overall idea, but they think that, because it used to be the case where they would say something and it would happen. But that is no longer the case, okay? So there's Ahmad Shara sitting in Damascus, and he's got tens of thousands of troops he can count on, right? It's not an army of several 100,000 people. It's not even certain what the chain of command is there, okay? Because they're constantly washing their hands off of massacres here, kidnapping of Alawites there. So they clearly don't control the state. You can't have it both ways. He doesn't control the state. He can shoot threats at Lebanon, but can he do anything about it? No. At that point, Hezbollah, okay, because they are in the Bekaa, as they are in the south, will act on things. There's no way we're letting Al-Qaeda come across the border and try to create a contiguous line like the Zangezur corridor from Turkey to Azerbaijan, but from Damascus to Tripoli. That's not going to happen in the current world as it is, because the current world, the multipolar world, is offering pushback. So every construct, every kinetic move by the collective West has potential to get a pushback. The problem is countries like Russia, China, and Iran, who are the great powers of today, the rising multipolar world, okay? These are the ones who are being attacked so much that they have a responsibility to, to hold that line, okay? And they've built up capabilities to do that. I feel like if the Russians, Chinese, and Iranians devised a war room, and it was like a war room of propaganda, of their own constructs, of their own, kinetic stuff, right? Announcements everywhere. People were getting dizzy. Wait, what does this mean? They would coordinate. Okay, you meet with the Minister of Defense in Azerbaijan. We will meet with the one in Armenia at the same time. We'll do that. Be easy peasy, because these guys have action behind them. The U.S. just has, the slowly failing dollar, right? And global PR. And this is what I'm saying. None of this is exact. The reason Azerbaijan dared to get closer or let the Mossad get close to the Iranian borders and then let the Israelis use Azerbaijani airspace is because they got emboldened. They got emboldened because Iran is so polite and it didn't act in other instances where it should have. But I think the West continues to push us to act. And that's a very fortunate thing because eventually we're going to act and we're going to act collectively. China, Russia, and Iran didn't know squat about each other until the Syrian war happened. I saw those three countries start to learn about each other in the Syrian battlefield, in the Syrian war theater. And that's how they started the next phase. And now the Americans are coming hard. They went for Russia and Ukraine. They bombed Iran directly, and they constantly threaten about Taiwan, right? And I feel like this is going to be the reason the RIC grouping is going to quickly accelerate to the next level. Because let's be honest, if Armenia is a big problem, Armenia used to hold the line, okay? But now Pashinyan, right, the head of state there, is an absolute NATO tool. He is such a pushover. And the Armenian people don't like him. He's extremely unpopular. He's managed to subvert a coup attempt. And he's going to keep going until someone knocks him out. That could happen. But also, let's say the Russians were like, oh, you want to play dirty, Aliyev? We're going to send back. So there are Azerbaijani gangs in Russia, and the Russian intelligence believes that they have been providing site identification, target identification for the to Baku's intelligence services, who then passes on to Israeli, NATO, etc. And this is a big deal for the Russians. They now feel like there's more than just, smoke. This is in fact true. They could react by expelling hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis. Azerbaijan could not handle that. Okay, they could not handle that onslaught of people returning. It would turn. Do you remember when Turkey shot down the Russian fighter jet, and the Russians went into action immediately? They stopped all Russian tourists from coming to Turkey. They cut off this. They cut off that. Turkey's never done it again. Azerbaijan actually shot down a Russian, some kind of aircraft. I don't know the details of it. And the Russians didn't do, they accepted an apology or whatever. They didn't do anything big. You've got to act.
It's
Otherwise,
the
these.
opposite.
What?
Russia downed a civilian Azari airplane. And
no, I'm talking about
December.
something else. I'm talking about a military thing. So what I'm saying is, if you don't react, we saw what happens when Iran didn't attack to react in the way they should have to the assassinations of the top Hezbollah commanders, etc., or didn't respond after Israel's second attack, before Operation True Promise 3 came. Israel got really emboldened. That side needs only a little, give them an inch and they're taking a mile. And so I think when the Russia, China, Iran configuration, who basically have clout in the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which includes, it includes the Central Asian countries, which is where NATO's coming at, okay? If they make plans within the SCO to have a kind of war room scenario among these three, and then to transmit some key messages to their other partners, which is, we're okay with whatever decision you make as long as it is a sovereign one, and you're not inviting one of our adversaries into your territory, then you kind of close off Central Asia. But just imagine if Russia, China, Iran acted as kinetically as these goofballs on the other side that come up with marketing constructs only. Just
Constantly.
react and you'll shrink. Your enemy will shrink tomorrow. That's my take on it.
Something
So I
very
just want
interesting
to say-
happening.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Clifford Bostria. Yeah, thank you. Thank you a lot.
They say resist.
Yeah, we are resisting, but in different ways.
I saw someone asking, when are we going to launch the Cradle Español? And to them I say, we need more likes and we need more donations. We need your support because we have so many dreams. I want to ask you guys, if you don't mind, because a couple of days ago, Axios comes out with this report by Barak Rabin, former Unit 8200 intelligence member in the Israeli military, saying that Russia had contacted Iran and the US saying that they back a nuclear deal with zero enrichment. A few hours later, the Iranian foreign ministry comes out and said, we have gotten no such message from the Russians. Russia takes a couple of days. They come out with their own statement today, a few hours ago, in which they say this is not true. We haven't agreed to this. We haven't talked to anyone. Nevertheless, they allow the story to be out there for a couple of days. Is this an example of this lack of strategizing? Do you think? Is there? Do you think? What would have to be offered to Russia for Russia to come to the Iranians and be like, "Hey, we want you to not enrich uranium"?
So these are countries that don't typically have alliances. They're sovereign states, and this is part of like the Americans, they'll build CENTCOM, and every single country within their jurisdiction, which is like 20 something plus countries, gets like, a direct line to CENTCOM, right? I don't know how it works with these countries, but because they're not in any formal alliances, but they are. Both have signed all three have signed high-level strategic relationships with each other. We need to see this happen faster. I mean, they take a wait-and-see approach to things, but I think the acceleration of the aggressions from the West towards this trio requires a speedier response. And I think they kind of work the old way, and that needs to change. And I'm sorry, it's on them to change. I can't change it for them. But I do think, everyone in the West went with that line about Russia offering Iran to take their enriched uranium, zhuzh it up and send Iran back what was required for an energy program or for its science programs, etc. Whereas Iran has clearly said, we're going to continue to enrich domestically, and we don't need to send our stuff outside. We have the technology to do it. If people want inspections, there's no reason it needs to be Western inspectors. It could be Russian and Chinese inspectors. They are two of the five nuclear, right?
The Security
states,
Council,
right? Weapon states,
yeah.
And obviously are just as inclined as the other three to have what's it called? To have limitations on nuclear proliferation. So I don't see, but they just have to come up with that construct. That one actually has legs, makes sense. Why haven't they come up with it? We at the Cradle have come up with many for them. Are they listening?
Hopefully. And if you're listening, please leave your like. Please make sure to leave your like, and maybe your donation in
No,
Russia.
just set up that goddamn war room and get on with it.
Yeah. I agree with you. There needs to be more coordination. It still seems like these are all like disparate actors acting together. I think with that we can wrap it up for this week. Unless you, Karim or Shamin, want to add something else. We've gone, through a whole lot of topics.
I just want to say the comments are very good. Sorry, I didn't have time to read them all or answer them all, but I agree with a bunch of people here, Mrs. H and Ali and others. And there's a question that was asked more than time. What about Hezbollah if Syria wants to take the north? There is no Hezbollah in the north. Many people in the north are willing to fight Hezbollah for free and Hezbollah. That's the reality in Lebanon. So the Northerns are alone, and they see Sharia as the new prophet of Islam, and that he will destroy Israel and will make the Arabs and the Levant prosperous and very rich. I don't know how this is implemented in their heads, but that's what they believe. We have to know that many people also went and blow themselves up believing
Suicide
that.
bombers,
So yeah, I didn't want to say it, but no. So there's
we're at the end of the show. We can say
know.
things now. We can say things now. Let me thank very quickly Shah for their €10 donation. In a world of noise, you've been the steady voice of truth. Your resilience is a beacon. Congrats. Oh my God. They want to make us cry live on air. If we shed a tear, we need, 1,000 likes.
Yeah. And guys, let us know, because we're trying new formats. It's all of this is quite new for us, let us know if you like the deep dives, the kind that we did today. It's not something that's covered on a lot of these shows. And sometimes, people wonder, is it worth getting into the weeds? But I, as a listener, and there's so much I don't know about. I like deep dives, but maybe not everyone does. Maybe you'll prefer us to sort of, go over some of the hot stories for the week and, the news that's happening now.
I'm glad that the what happened over the past few days allowed us to speak about Azerbaijan, because we would have never touched it on our own, and I think well, yeah, let us know what you think, let us know. And sadly,
we
no.
do regularly on the Cradle, like on the actual website where we write analysis, etc. But it is new for us on the podcast. So yeah, go ahead. I know you want to wrap up.
No, I was going to say,
Oh,
because
another $4.99.
Oh, thank you so much, Mrs. H. Maybe we should stay on for a bit longer. No, I'm kidding. I saw someone complaining about our title too. By the way, I'm sure this video is gonna get what do you call it? When they complain about it. And all I want to say is the New York Times just came out with a report in which they say that the minutes of the conversations between the Israeli defense minister, in which they plan out the concentration camp, they talk about 600 Palestinians initially being held in Rafah, and then moving to the whole 2 million. So they want to shove the entire population of Gaza, the surviving population of Gaza, into this tiny strip of land. Already, the people in Gaza have less living space than Guantanamo detainees. Already at this point. So think about that for a moment when you look at our title in which we say Israel's Auschwitz in Gaza, and I don't know, because I think it's a very appropriate term for it, for exactly what is happening. But with that, we want to leave you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to leave your like before you go to share this stream. Remember, we'll be back on Thursday, same time, same place. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for everyone for joining, and we'll see you then.